Hi everybody. Welcome to tonight's webinar, which is reducing technology addiction. Some of you may have joined already, and some of you may be joining as we carry through. So I'll just begin the quick introductions as we wait on some of those joining for tonight's session. My name is Katrina Buckley, and I am an NLP practitioner with NLP for Kids. I've been with them for 3 years now, and I've worked with them alongside their not-for-profit organisation Superheroes. I also have my own separate coaching business, coaching and mentoring for young people, called School of Thought. And as you can hear from my voice, I'm based in sunny Scotland, but I basically now, since COVID hit our shores, I've been working online across the UK. So I'm not based in Scotland because a lot of what we do now is digital and it's online. I'm now working across the UK with young people and with parents, as I say, because we're doing everything now on the screen. So ironically, we're on here tonight to talk about screen time, but yes, a lot of what we do nowadays is on screen, is online. I also work with schools, so I work with young people, with families and parents, but I also work with schools. A lot of that is also done online, and when we don't have COVID putting restrictions on us, then I would be based in school working with young people, individually, in small groups and with classrooms. So it's great to be here with you tonight. That's just a little bit about myself. As I say, people will be joining as we go through. There will be time for questions. Well, there should be time for questions at the end. And if you do have any questions, then just keep a note of them, and you know, we can cover them off at the end. If you have any burning questions as we go through, then you know, please put in a comment down there, and I should pick it up as we go along. Okay, so let's begin. Are you agonising over screen time? Now, for a lot of parents, and for us in particular, I know I am, and I don't even know if that's necessarily just my kids or the young people I'm involved with, but with myself, because a lot of what I do now involves screen time. So I am using my phone, my laptop, my tablets a lot more than I would before, because all of the work that I'm doing now is online. So, you know, we've kind of largely become digital natives, and our children and young people are becoming digital natives who grow up surrounded by digital information and entertainment on screens. You know, it is part of our life. But what is the screen time? When we think about time on screens, what actually is that? What do we define it as? Is it just our kids playing video games and watching TV, or is it much more? And who is affected by screen time, and what is the impact of too much screen time? So with the invasion of technology, I know we like to call it the invasion of technology, into our life, a large range of screen time types, bit of a tongue twister, has appeared, and it's a major part of modern life. And most recently, a necessary part of modern education and working, as I mentioned myself, you know, doing this, working online now and being based from home. So it has become you know, particularly a part of our home working on the back of COVID-19 hitting our shores. Now, one way to assess basically the benefit of screen time is by considering whether there's two routes that we go down. They define it as active or passive. So passive is when a child is passively absorbs in information from the screen. So they're playing on an app or they're a game, and it's just through mindless repetition. Passive activities can include monitoring social media, you know, so scrolling through your phone, you know, scrolling through Facebook, watching videos on YouTube, playing repetitive games, and binge watching shows. And I know that's something a lot of us probably have done since we've been into the lockdown situation. I know I have. I don't think I've watched as much TV as I ever have before. So we're basically watching and listening. We're not actually interacting. Active, on the other hand, active screen time involves cognitive and or physical engagement in the process of what we're doing. So this might include activities like making YouTube videos rather than just watching them, playing educational games, editing pictures, and coding on a website. So it's all something that we have to engage in doing, and it involves cognitive thinking. So we have to use our cognitive element. Kids nowadays are expected to reply, to draw a picture, create or move. More than that, language, social and physical skills are developing as part of this active on-screen time. In fact, any software that involves effort on the part of a child has an educational side which promotes learning. So apps allowing kids to practice letters, numbers, spelling can be viewed as active and therefore effective for child development. Even video games might be regarded as active screen time if they promote physical or cognitive activity. Now, while monitoring and scrolling through social media like we do, pick up your phone, you scroll through it, is very much a passive activity. Engaging in conversation, taking photos, posting them onto Instagram, which is probably more the young person's one, and posting onto your account, or writing posts that explores ideas or promotes discussion, which probably more we will do as adults, are all very much active types of engagement. But we can have active and passive depending on how we use it. So a reliance and dependency on using electronic devices continues to rise as pressures of society are put upon us. And screen time has actually been cited in the media as the cause of obesity, mental health problems and educational failure. And then we also have a separate set of concerns about the specific content of screen use. These vary from concerns about exposure to violence in films, to the effect of cyberbullying through social media, and with particular concern over the impact of social media on mental wellbeing amongst children. The Royal College of Paediatrics and Child Health, as part of their research, consulted over 100 children and young people aged 11 to 24 from across the UK. Now, approximately 75% of all teenagers today own a smartphone. Now, this access allows young people to stream TV and videos, surf on the internet, and play with apps. Yet only 25% of these teens believe they are continuously connected to the internet. So this is an important discrepancy. So how much time children are spending interacting with screens versus how much time they think they are spending. Social media is a huge source of teens' connection with screens. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, Snapchat, and they lead the way as the most popular sites with which teens will engage. Video games fill in the remainder of the time. Additionally, 89% of girls and boys say video games as a favourite activity they would choose to do with their free time. So it's the choice, it's the way that our young people are exploring and using their free time. It's becoming a sort of natural way for them to do that. Children currently spend over 2 hours a day watching television and even more time playing with apps, video games and smartphones. Now, while television has gone down slightly, smartphone, tablet and social media use have all increased. And that's because a lot of the time we're turning to YouTube to watch things, to watch films, or we're on Netflix, we're streaming all the time. Now, in terms of what the young people themselves had to say and the views on the screen time use from the research that was carried out, 88% said screen time had a negative impact on their sleep. 1.5 hours was the average time spent on screens before falling asleep. Now, screen time is linked to a host of insomnia symptoms in teenagers. And by delaying the release of melatonin, the sleep hormone, screen time pushes back bedtime and leads to less restful sleep. So it sort of upsets the natural body clock. As the majority of teens have strict school start times, a later bedtime usually results in less sleep and therefore feeling tired and sleepy the next day. 41% said screen time had affected their play and their fun. 35% said screen time had a negative impact on their mood and their mental health. That's quite a high number for our young people to be recognising that themselves. So they're realising and understanding and have awareness of how that changes their mood in a negative way. And 18% said it had a negative impact on their family time and schoolwork. Now, on a typical day, young people will spend on an average 2.5 hours on a computer, laptop, tablet, 3 hours on their phone, and around 2 hours watching TV. So that's a lot of screen time, you know, by the time we add that up. So really, what are the pros and cons? So again, children and young people would ask for their views on this. So as the use of screens is evolving rapidly, social media, homework, and mobile devices, it is difficult to apply to today's children and young people, but evidence does suggest that children with higher screen time tend to have a less healthy diet, have tendency to snack instead of stopping to eat a more substantial and healthy meal. You know what it's like ourselves. If we're working away and we're working on, you know, on our laptops throughout the day, we tend to zone out and we tend to forget, and we've got to sort of be strict on ourselves to step away and have that break that we need to regulate, the break times that we need to regulate ourselves away from the screen time. So it's even more tricky for kids to do that. Children are often exposed to advertising while using screens. So they're on their phone, they're maybe on TikTok, they're on different things. So ads are coming across all the time. And this can appear, it seems to appear to lead to higher intake of unhealthy foods and snacking because of that message that they're picking up on their phones from the ads. It's a way to connect with others. So it's a way for young people. Connection is a huge part of life for everyone, particularly our young people as they're growing up, navigating their way through life. So it's a way to connect with others, to be a part of something bigger than themselves, and helps them to develop friendships. But it also exposes children and young people to harmful content. So that's cyberbullying, watching violence, or perhaps something that has pornography or, you know, sexual images, unrealistic imagery. So there can be a lot of things about unrealistic body shapes, or through monitoring online status. So that's the constant, you know, if they've put something up on Instagram, it's the number of likes that they get or the comments, you know, with their peer group. So it's that constant looking for the validation. The more time we spend using screens, the less time we spend doing physical activity. Getting up and moving around is important for your child's energy levels, for their development, for their sleep, and their overall health and well-being. It also has educational value and supports school-related homework and research. But this can also lead to stress and anxiety as expectations are placed on the young person to learn more independently without peer support and teacher-led learning. So let's use online gaming as an example. What it does give to people is, for young people, is certainty. You know, it's a feeling of control. When they're online, they know what to expect. They know when they're online what to expect in the game. Simple, that's it. They're in a world where they have an element of control. But screen time can alter behaviour and lead to negative outcomes because, you know, we can have a huge change in emotional states, you know, when we're on a game due to the excitement. So it can lead to anger, frustration, excitement, as I just said, when playing video games or when, you know, we're texting or we're online with friends. So we have to be careful about that because these emotional outcomes, these emotional states can be quite hard for them to regulate. But, you know, shared video games are easy and fun, and they're good ways to socialise and communicate. And certainty, you know, it does give them certainty, but certainty can also come from the repetitive behaviours and knowing what behaviours lead to what reactions. So the repetitive behaviours can come from the repetitiveness of playing the game, of doing the same thing over and over again. So that certainty comes with that. And then, as I say, behaviours lead to reactions. Now, a lot of the time, those actions come from the parents, as the child themselves know what reaction they will get. So let's say, for example, your child won't come off the Xbox when asked, okay? Now, as a parent, you might notice that you get annoyed and angry and perhaps start shouting because you feel like they never listen. They don't do as they're told. For the child, this is attention towards them. You know, so for us, we're getting frustrated and annoyed, but for the child, that's attention towards them. It's not positive attention, but it's still attention. And in turn, the child might then start shouting back, and then confrontation starts, and then it all gets blown out of proportion, you know, and we start a big fallout. Or you might find you get annoyed because they don't answer you when you're talking to them. while they're playing. So they may be playing online or scrolling on their phone, and they've got their head down and they're just like scrolling up and down on the phone, or they're zoned in watching Netflix. Well, and they just ignore you. Well, really, are they? Do we know that they're just ignoring us? Well, in fact, when we think about it, they are effectively, I just said, zoned out. Their full attention is fixed on what they are doing. It's 100% fixed on that thing that they're doing in that time. So again, I'll go back to the gaming analogy because it's a biggie for lots of parents. It actually takes an immense amount of focus and concentration when we are particularly gaming, okay? So they don't have any spare capacity to give to anything else that's going on around them. Their full attention is on that screen and what they're doing. Now, I'm actually quite blown away by the skills and the attention to detail that is needed to do everything that they equally need to do when they're playing a video game. Now, for us, we look at it and just think, oh, that's just a fun way. It's actually quite intense. So let's consider that. There's a lot of skills being involved here. It helps to develop problem solving as they figure out how to move between levels and fix problems in the game. So what happens is they get skills by getting the player, as a player, they solve increasingly complicated problems as they go through the game. Now, this can be the same in Minecraft, or it can be the same in a game like Fortnite. Each time we're going through a different stage and we're learning new things, and we're able to do new things and we're able to do more things. So increasingly complicated problems are coming their way, and they're able to then problem solve them. In many cases, there's a time pressure, so you've got to do things in a very, very short space of time. So that develops speed and decision-making skills. And studies have shown that playing video games also increases creativity in young people. So they are getting more active, and I know in Minecraft, a lot of schools use that in an educational application. There's also the development of spatial and hand-eye coordination skills, because believe me, I've tried to do gaming and it takes a lot of effort, and it's not an easy thing to do. So there's a lot of hand-to-eye coordination skills, as well as vision, and obviously those speed skills that we touched on. So there's quite a lot of energy being used up in that time and space that they are in what they are doing. So they quite literally don't have anything left for you. And in reality, they likely don't even hear you when you're talking to them. Another thing that it does do is it helps them to feel important, significant, and that they're good at something. That constant challenge of going through the different levels of the game, that proves that they are good at something. If they post something on their Instagram account and they get lots of likes, oh, that makes me feel important, that makes me feel significant. So the rapid growth of social media over the last decade has established an entirely new medium for human interaction. So it's a new way for us to connect with people. So you've got online platforms such as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and they've all allowed people in every corner of the world to be connected 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's expected that by this year, 2021, it's hard to believe we're there already, it is forecast that there will be around 3 billion active monthly users of social media. So the good old days where we used to just connect face to face or with the people around about you, the people you knew, are long gone. Everything is online now, and it's 24/7. So it's hard for our young people to switch off. It's there all night. For us, when I was younger, the TV used to switch off at a certain time. It was midnight, and then it gradually got later and later and later. So there was nothing you could do after that time. It was gone, the screen was gone. You then had to go to bed and sleep. But that option to rest isn't there anymore for our young people, because the ability to be able to go online all the time is there instead. It stimulates their need for growth and development, which we all need that in life. It's essential to our well-being. And if there are no goals that we've set ourselves, there's no goals for us to reach and help us to keep focus in life, then we'll use screen time. Our young people will use screen time to meet this need instead. And then often as a result, problems will go alongside this, and we'll touch on some of those. Okay. Now, so-called social media addiction. has been referred to by a wide variety of studies and experiments. Okay, and I'll just read this out as it says. It is thought that addiction to social media affects around 5% of young people and was recently described as potentially more addictive than alcohol and cigarettes. Its addictive nature owes to the degree of compulsivity, oh, it's a big word, I didn't think I would get that in there, with which it is used. The urge to check one's social media's link may, the urge to check one's social media may be linked to both instant gratification, so that is the need to experience fast, short-term pleasure, and dopamine production, which is the chemical in the brain that is associated with reward and pleasure. The desire for a hit of dopamine, coupled with a failure to gain instant gratification, may prompt people to perpetually refresh their social media feeds. So that means they'll keep doing it, doing it, and doing it, and doing it. Now, our emotions give a chemical reaction, and they are often big emotions, which a young person doesn't necessarily always have that control over. So the desire for that hit of dopamine, that chemical reward of pleasure, coupled with a failure to gain that instant gratification, that instant significance, that instant validation, may prompt us to It may prompt us to, keep seeking that more and more, keep using the screen time, keep using the need to keep refreshing our social media feeds, keep posting up there, keep checking it, going online constantly checking, have I had another like there, has somebody made a comment, why have they got more likes in their post and why don't I have any more likes on my post? So this constant need for gratification and validation will be there constantly with our young people. Now, I've knocked myself off of the bit that I was talking about in terms of how I was quoting it. Okay, so let me just get that back. Right, yep, there we go. So what is dangerous about this compulsive use is that if the gratification is not experienced, users may internalize, so they may start to believe in themselves that this is due to being unpopular, unfunny. So just like I was saying there, that needs to be, why is their post got more likes than mine and why has mine not? Okay, so that need is going to be there and we're going to start to get unhealthy negative beliefs. A lack of likes, on a status update may cause negative self-reflection and it might give us feelings of anxiety and loneliness. Okay, so again, it's just going to keep pushing us to keep refreshing that page, keep doing what we're doing. So we want that personal validation. Now, alongside this desire for instant gratification is the negative impact that these platforms can have on sleep and sleep quality, which then feeds into how we think and feel about things, because we know ourselves when we're feeling tired, then we're not always in the best frame of mind, and therefore our emotional regulation isn't as controlled. So data from qualitative studies has shown that using social media compulsively can damage sleeping patterns, having an adverse effect on young people's performance in school. Okay, so because they're tired the next day and they're sleepy, and therefore when we're tired and sleepy, we don't have the ability to focus and concentrate the same. The University of Glasgow found that young people found it difficult to relax following nighttime social media use, reducing their brain's ability to prepare for sleep. Sleep loss works in a vicious cycle of reinforcement with mental health. So loss of sleep due to nighttime social media use can lead to poorer mental health. And in poor mental health can then lead to intense nighttime use of social media and then sleep loss. So it goes round and round and round in a loop. And it just keeps making it worse and it feeds into each other. So fear of missing out is another one. Now, this has been linked to intensive social media use, so that fear of missing, yourself, you can caught up on social media and Facebook, oh, I missed out, I don't want to miss out on something, maybe somebody's posted, or this is happening and I want to make sure that I'm part of it. So it's been linked to intensive social media use and is associated with lower mood and life satisfaction. So it's that constant need to feel, crave that feeling of significant, feeling connected and having contribution. It can also heighten anxiety by increasing our ability to keep up to date with the activities of our social circles. That constant need to make sure, what are they all up to, what are they all doing, what have they been doing, what are they sharing, that need to keep constantly up to date. Now, the popular concept of fear of missing out, or FOMO, as we refer to it, it relates to an apprehension that others might be having a much more rewarding experience that we're not part of. And, it's characterised by the ability, that desire to constantly stay connected with people. So we're less able to have that time away for ourselves, and we feel as if we constantly need to be connected to everyone else around about us, because we've lost that ability to just enjoy that time on our own. It's also been linked to intensive social media use. We have become more aware of what we're missing out on. So seeing photos of friends, that the whole thing they say where, their life looks fantastic on Facebook, but, deep down, really, is it? So, all the photos of friends having a great time, and we're not with them. But is there really a safe level of screen time? That's the whole point of tonight, is understanding. So can we get that down to what might be a safe level of screen time? Can we reduce that, that addiction? Well, the short answer is no. There's no kind of regulated safe level of screen time, but it doesn't mean that all screen time is harmful. We just have to be careful about how we use that screen time. So our digital lives come with an astonishing amount of time spent with our devices and their big bright LED screens. Some people, which I think me sometimes at the moment, spend their entire 8-hour working day looking at a computer screen. Now, recommendations are shifting from a one-size-fits-all approach to more about encouraging educators, parents and caregivers to set boundaries based on the academic and social value for each child. So it's not like this is the number of hours that we recommend your child has. It's more about, well, this is to do with your own individual academic and social value for your child. So what is important to them? What will give them benefit, rather than that one size fits all. Because you as a parent, as a caregiver, you know your child better than anyone else. And you are therefore the person to decide, best person to decide what and how much media use is the right amount. So how do we do that? How do we get to that point though of saying, right, okay, my child is spending a huge amount of time on screen time. Now, up until recently, we've been doing a lot of that screen time has been allocated to home learning. And then therefore, obviously the young person still expects to do their fun stuff on their screen time after that. And that's a tricky one. But now that we've gone back to school, there's less time being spent doing the learning on the screen time and more on that interactive face-to-face in school. So what can we do to help us get some control and get some structure back into that screen time at home, that safe level of screen time for our children? So the first thing we want to do is we want to have a plan. Now you can see on the screen here, I've put a couple of examples up, shared a couple of examples for our younger children about a plan. And we're going to talk through what we can do with this. So we want to have a plan and we want to stick to it, but we want to agree that plan as a family. Now that's important. It's important that to sit down as a family in a calm moment and discuss the boundaries. We don't like to call it rules. Boundaries is a good way to explain it. So we have boundaries. That is something that we don't cross over. A rule can be very negative. It can be perceived as very negative. So when we explain it as a boundary, this is as far as you can go with that. You can't go any further. It's like the boundary of your garden, the boundary of the gates around the school. We understand boundaries. That's how far we can go. So when we understand there's a boundary, it gives an element of flexibility, which is very important. So if you discuss those boundaries of screen use together, then you'll be adopting them together, you're agreeing them, you're building them together. So you're building those boundaries, you're creating that boundary. Together, as a parent, you want to explain that you're going to create a screen time contract and agree the rules together, okay? So you have to take the lead on this and you have to give the guidance. But the children must be part of the discussion and allowed to make suggestions, because this is an opportunity for both parents to listen and consider their child's perspective. It's very important that we include their perspective and be open and express any concerns. The more your young person, your child feels valued, the more that they will engage in something. If they feel valued in the discussion and in setting those boundaries and agreeing the rules together, then they are more likely to follow that guidance. They are more likely to remain within the boundaries that are set. Now, the idea of this written, visible contract is to give children clarity, okay, and as much room as possible to be responsible for responsible for what they do, so that you don't need to monitor or control their every single move. Now, we don't want to be the sort of helicopter parent. We want to encourage our children to be responsible and to feel confident in their own decisions and in their own actions, knowing that they're positive actions. And you know, it's practically impossible for us, you know, to monitor or, you know, micromanage every single thing that they do. You know, whether you work from home or you're in the office, you know, it's impossible, you know, because we all have our own lives to do. So we want to make sure that we're encouraging responsibility. Now, rules or boundaries, I prefer to call them, must be framed in the positive, okay? So effective boundaries are about empowering your child so they know what to do, and then ultimately develop those effective, positive, good habits. Now, a couple of ones there we've got up: screen time rules. You know, make your bed, have you got dressed? You know, they can tick off Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It's colourful, it's bright, it's engaging, and it looks fun and creative. The other one is you've earned screen time, so that's a bit of reward. Now, we are all as adults motivated in different ways. We're either motivated towards something or motivated away from something. So reward chats work really well for somebody who's motivated towards achieving something or earning something or receiving something. So that works really well for that young person, because if you do this, then you get this, you know, so that will keep them motivated. Other young people and children are motivated away from something. So they do something, it doesn't go well for them, so they then say, oh, I don't want to do that again, and then they'll be motivated to say, well, I'll do this instead next time to make sure that doesn't happen. So that gives you kind of ideas about how we can help to work as a family, and then also encourage and give guidance to our young people about how to get those positive changes about screen time. So get those positive habits in. We want to be flexible, okay? Really important. Flexible is very, very important in this, and we want to get the kids involved as much as we can. We've spoke on that. We want them to feel valued, and we want them to feel significant and that they are contributing and not just being told what to do. Because, you know, if we're in a work situation and we just keep getting told what to do and our opinion is not taken on board, and we don't feel as if we're being considered or valued, and we're just shut down and told what to do, you know, how do we feel? Do we feel confident? Do we feel important? Do we feel valued? Are we willing to put effort into something? No, we're not. So it's the same for young people. We want to make sure that we're giving them that opportunity. So we want to be flexible. We want them to feel that they are being listened to and that their opinion counts, okay? They are much more likely to follow through with anything when they feel that way. For infants and younger children, you know, it is going to mean more that you will have more of the control on that. You know, you'll need to set the duration and put the screen, you know, the parental controls in place, and, you know, set the content, you know, as they're responsible adults. Once the contract is written and signed, the last and most difficult part for parents, however, is to be consistent and follow it through. You know, a lot of times we easily put these things into place, you know, we put them theoretically into place, but we don't put them into practice. We set them up, we do the family meeting, we get the contract going, and then after a few days, we all can fall away from it and we don't bother. And then the next thing, we've returned to all our old habits and the frustrations kick in again, and then everybody starts to get upset and emotional, and things start to go wrong again, and the problems return. So we want to make sure that as the parents, we are being consistent, because we need to show our young people what we need them to do, what we want them to do. So we have to be consistent, and we have to follow through on what we have agreed. Now, it can take a good few weeks for any to firmly establish these rules and to get your child into good habits. So we want those boundaries, and we want to reinforce those boundaries on a daily basis over the course of a few weeks to make sure that we firmly establish these boundaries. And it's also important to be very clear on when screen time is allowed and when it isn't. Okay, so we need to be very specific and very clear when it's allowed and when it isn't. So these are just a kind of an example, a guide there to show you some ideas on how you can gauge your child away and offer them this with a contract, you know, with boundaries and putting them in place. So it's things like encouraging household, I don't like to call them chores, we like to call them tasks about the house or jobs about the house. You know, have you made your bed? These are all really good ways to get goals and to encourage focus in your young person. So if they make their bed in the morning, it gives them something specific to do. Have they got dressed? Have they put their dirty clothes in the wash, brushed your teeth, combed your hair? You know, have you read a book for 20 minutes? Have you done something kind? Have you been outside to play for at least 30 minutes? You know, so it's encouraging them to do some of the general day-to-day stuff, but also encouraging them to do other things that is not screen time. Okay, and that helps them to get more creative play and perhaps outdoor play. Now, what we can do, there's some ideas around specific age brackets. So say the age between 6 and 10. So what we want to do is encourage creative pastimes. We've given some examples there that involve drawing. Making and editing videos is another way that we can use screen time, but without it being all about just passive screen time or just that, you know, incessant watching a specific thing. We're encouraging them to do something creative and something proactive with, and something that's a learning. So they could be editing videos or building game levels or using an in-game level creator. Something, I think you can get that in some, it's an option in some games, but not in all games. So they can start to be creating these things themselves. They can start to put programming together. You know, when they're working on different games, you know, they can start to put, rather than just playing the game, they could be thinking about, well, how can I program this? How can I do some computer programming here and create a program? So they can start to think about these things. And it's also recommended that you allow up to an hour a day engaging in these types of activities. So this is the active activities of online, you know, using screen time. So kind of work with your kids, discover what it is they find interesting, guide them, and keep an eye out to avoid that it becoming just passive screen time, you know, YouTube video, YouTube video, YouTube video, you know. So we want to encourage them to be more active, you know, and more interactive in what we are doing. As we kind of move up into the age 10 to 14 age bracket, we want to start at this point involving them more into the discussion, okay? So we want to be sure to discuss with our children the content that they watch, as well as the reasons why we maybe want to restrict the time, okay? Because there's more understanding there and there's more awareness. I would even say that we can start doing that between the ages of 6 and 10, because as we get older and we move through primary school, that awareness becomes more, you know, their responsibility and their understanding is developing all the time as they go through school. So if we start to introduce these conversations and introduce them, you know, in nice, relaxed, friendly ways as they're younger, then they become more aware of them and it becomes part of what they expect as they get older. So be sure to discuss with your children the content they watch, as well as the reasons why we restrict the time. By this age, you know, 10 to 14, you'd expect children to have a good understanding of the effects screen time has on them personally, like we saw in the earlier slides about the feedback from young people themselves, and the reasoning behind the boundaries that you want to put in place. Now, encourage them to choose the content they consume carefully and selectively, you know, so give them guidance, help them to make the decisions, you know, don't make the decisions for them, but encourage them to make the decisions, give them guidance, but also make sure that you're doing a check-in with them. You know, we can't just leave them to their own devices. As tweens and teens, attach huge significance to, you know, that peer communication. We've got to be supportive in their exploration of the media and messaging tools that they use to achieve this. So the Snapchat, you know, the exploring of Facebook, you know, as they dabble into the world of Facebook, they're on YouTube a lot more. So they are being exposed to more adult themed communication. So we want to be supportive in their exploration of this, but also being responsible. As I say, it's important to check in regularly to discuss the potential dangers of online communication, and just encourage what would be an example of appropriate use. You know, discuss between you what's appropriate use and what's not appropriate use, and when to use it. Okay. Now, as we get into the teens, then it becomes more of a negotiation. You know, we want to focus it in more of a negotiation. You know, any contract we're putting in place is a negotiation, and it's important to encourage that in our young people, because they're gaining a very important skill. Negotiation is a fantastic skill to have in life. We need that when we move into adulthood. But as we come into teenage years, you know, at this stage, many teens are independent enough to make most of their own decisions themselves about screen time in particular. And if we try to come in and tell them otherwise, then it can cause a little bit of a showdown. You know, that's when the conflict arrives. At the same time, they are especially prone to bringing on games, binging on games and shows, okay, or investing a lot of their identity in their virtual presence. So they'll find a show that they like and they'll just watch it, or they'll find a game that they like and they'll just keep playing the game, or they'll go onto YouTube and they'll just watch video after video after video. Okay, so they're building up their identity, and that identity, unfortunately, in today's society, is an online identity. And for a lot of our young people, and especially in this last year, that identity has been online. So that is, they're constantly pushing themselves forward in that identity to understand that identity and build on that identity. So keep an eye out for these things and talk regularly about what healthy screen time looks like, as well as the content that they'll be looking at. Try and give them a fairly free hand concerning creative screen time, unless it does cause problems in the rhythm of their everyday life. And most importantly, don't forget to take an interest in how your kids spend time and discuss healthy screen time. This might include learning new skills or doing coding on website that I was talking about earlier, but I couldn't get the word out, so I kept calling it programming. So they might want to do some coding, or digital music. That's a very creative way, but we can go online and we can use our screen time at the same time. So we're still getting that connection with screen time and that identity that we're building and developing as a teenager, but we're doing it in a more creative and positive way. Editing pictures, and just build on what different interests they have and find different ways for your young person to engage differently in their screen time. Now, I know this is not necessarily reducing their screen time straight away, but what it is doing is it's redirecting their screen time. It's changing them away from just being focused on the social media, the gratification that we need, that being online and having, competitiveness. It's removing them away from that sort of negative element of it that can build up into stress and anxiety. And there's those beliefs where we feel as if we're not good enough and we start to get some negative, into something that's more creative and positive, and it's going to make them feel significant again. It's a learning part of it. It's that connection into something else. So that's a nice distraction away. And then once we've distracted them onto something else that's away from what we see as the negative side, we can then start to introduce ways of then adding in activities that are not necessarily screen time, but say it is digital music, so we can then start adding in some practical music that goes alongside the digital music, which then means that they have time off screen and on screen to do music. So their interest covers across both sides, and it's not just all 100% online, which is the unfortunate thing with gaming and social media. So we want to start building up those positive habits rather than just cutting it off straight away. So if you can establish and communicate boundaries before your children start using devices, that's the best thing. That's the best thing to do, and to stick to those limits as much as possible. Unfortunately, we can't always do that. We're maybe at a stage now, we're a year in from COVID, and we've not been able to establish those boundaries because we didn't really know what was coming, and it's been a year of uncertainty. But going forward, if you can start to establish and communicate those boundaries beforehand, that will make all the difference. And again, be consistent and be persistent. You've got to keep reinforcing the message, and if you have a boundary, keep reinforcing that boundary. Okay, don't give in. Be persistent. But make sure everybody understands the boundary. There's no point in having a boundary if nobody gets it. Okay, so it has to be something that's clear and understood. Agree a screen time limit. Okay, so on the screen here, we've got some examples of a more sort of adult-based contract for teenagers. And it gives you some ideas of how you can look at sort of defining that contract together. So you've got something there which is about school nights and weeknights, okay? So we've got, we will have a different boundary then than we will have at the weekend, okay? So that's more likely that we'll keep them separate. So an example there is our family shuts down all our devices at such and such a time. The devices remain off until the next morning. And then devices will not be turned back on until everyone has finished breakfast and is dressed and ready to leave. So that's the boundaries you put in place. That then stops the problem in the morning where your young person's maybe not getting ready, or they're dragging their heels, they're on their phone, you can't engage with them, they're just they've switched off. So that removes that problem and it gets them focused on doing these different tasks, and then they get their phone back. Weekends and holidays. Our family limits screen time on weekends and holidays to blah blah blah, however many minutes per day. We have screen time blackouts, which basically just means that we have a no zone. We have a screen-free zone. So we don't use our devices when we have meals together, we're at family gatherings, we've got friends visiting, we're on play dates, sleepovers, or when we're out for a walk or a drive. Okay, be flexible in these. Some young people, if you're at family gatherings, they prefer to have their phone with them because it gives them a sense of security. And being so, be flexible and discuss them together. Again, it's not one size fits all. This is just a general, some ideas and top tips for you to start that process, to get you thinking and get you creative. And then you create, you add at the bottom, you add your personal family guidelines here, so think about them. Device storage and charging. Now, this is a big one as well for some people. We have the rule in our house that we do not charge overnight, and we don't keep our phones or our iPads beside our beds. So one here is our family does not store or charge tech devices in our bedrooms or playrooms. Instead, we all keep our devices in a communal space. And then you write down where that is. Okay, so you're agreeing what the screen time limits are, okay, and the consequences of both following the boundaries and not following the boundaries. So this is your contract, and then you agree, well, what happens if I don't do A, B, C, and D, okay, or 1, 2, 3, 4. What happens if we don't do these? So we have to make sure that we've got positive consequences and negative consequences, okay? Because a lot of our young people think a consequence is a negative action, it's going to be a negative outcome. It's not. A consequence is just something that happens as a result of doing something, okay? So we want to encourage them that let's go for all the positive consequences. Now, limiting screens right now will probably be especially challenging because of the year that we've had and the amount of time that we've spent on screen. But stick with it and be persistent, as I say, be flexible and give it some time and build in that way to distract them away onto other things rather than spending time purely on gaming or purely on social media. Start to use their screen time for more creative ways, and then gradually you can start to step away from that. Create that screen time as you get the creativity into other things. And again, just to reinforce, it takes time for a new way of something to become the normal, so give it time. Can't stress that enough. Be aware, but not intrusive or judgmental. Okay, so be aware of what's happening, but don't judge. It's important to know what apps and networks young people are engaged with, how these work, and what content they're likely to encounter. But it's often counterproductive, though, to insist on monitoring every detail of online activity. So step away, give them that responsibility and that trust in them, building that trust. You've got your contract, and building that trust that they will be responsible to follow that through, and equally you will be as well. So give them that more mature approach in the long run, so that they can then start to trust in their own judgment and in their own behaviours and in their own choices. Children, especially younger ones, often crave structure. Teenagers need it too. They need structure and routine. Okay, teenagers is a bit more of a loose structure. It's just guidance for them to sort of plan out their day. It just gives them something to focus on. Certain things throughout the day that gives them that focus. Younger ones, they'll crave structure. Especially during unpredictable times, which is what we've just had in the last year. So a lot of our young people will naturally have taken to the screen world because that's what they know, that's what they're comfortable with, and that's where they spend a lot of their time. So that's where they will go. They will naturally just turn to that. So it's healthy for everyone to stop screen use for at least 1 or 2 hours before bedtime. So put that into your screen time blackout, okay? Screen time blackout is bedtime's 10 o'clock, so everybody switches their screens off at 8. Now, I'm just about to go on and talk to you about the parent responsibility about that. So that means we have to do it as well. So it's not just the children and the young people, it's everyone, okay? And as I said, screen time blackout, some other examples are the bedroom becomes you can have the bedroom as a screen-free zone, so that the bedroom is all about relaxation. That's a place where they can go and chill out, relax, and it's a nice restful place for them. Screen time can be elsewhere in the house. It could be in the car, and again at meal times. It's a kind of screen time blackout at meal time. And find alternatives, activities to having screen times, and also start them off online and then start to move them away from that online side. Some other stuff there was screen time privilege. Devices aren't available after school until homework and tasks are completed, and then you list out the tasks that you want them to do. Alternatives to screen time. So our family recognises that too much screen time is unhealthy. As a family, we each have weekly physical and creative activities such as, and you decide what those are. And we've got in there musical instruments, art, dance, reading for pleasure. Now the dance you can link in again with the social media. It's all part of the TikTok phenomenon. There's lots of things on online just now about dance, so you can link the both of them in, so that they are then got the physical part of it, so they will do the dance off screen whilst they are involved and engaged in more of that creative side on screen. Then you've got web use and passwords. So that's all about protecting from inappropriate material and frightening images. And it also helps you to have a little bit more control over the time that you want them to have online. And then this is where the consequences come in. When the contract is broken, our family recognises that screen time is a privilege, not a right. So if someone in our family repeatedly breaks a family contract, devices will be taken away. So you've got to give young people an opportunity to prove that they can get it right. If they make a mistake, we immediately punish them for it and take away their device, then they're going to just forget it. They're going to walk away from that contract and they're not going to show any interest. If we give them some flexibility in the contract and the opportunity to prove themselves and to prove that trust, then they're more likely inclined to do that. Because, you know, as we all know, we do make mistakes, and it's important that children realise that it's okay to make a mistake, but we learn from it. So you just agree that in advance, and then how many times is okay, and then what that outcome is. Okay, so as the parent, right, okay, so as you're the parent demonstrating authority, you know, we want to make sure that you are demonstrating authority. So this is your parenting contract. Now, again, this is just some examples that I've shared here about how we can start to think about our part in what we're playing here. So are you, as the parent, demonstrating authority with your perseverance? Now, I've mentioned that word several times now, perseverance. We have to be persistent. We have to keep doing it and doing it and doing it. Okay, we have to repeat, repeat, repeat. It's like rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. So are you being persistent and consistent, I suppose, with the message you want to give to your child? Or perhaps do you notice yourself giving in? Like we said there, you start off something with good intentions, and then after a few days, the amount of effort that is needed to go into it becomes quite exhausting, and then you just give in. Do you follow through with consequences, positive and negative? You know, for any change to happen, it's important that we are consistent and assertive. So that contract that you've put in place with your young person, with your teenager, say for example, and you know they've reached that limit, the boundary of how many times they have not, you know, followed through, or they've not met the boundary that was agreed. You know, are you then following through with the consequence? If they are doing everything that they've been asked to do, well, what's the positive consequence? What are you giving them to show them that yes, they've been responsible and that you trust them and that you're proud of them? You know, so we have to make sure that we're giving the positive as well, that we're giving that positive reassurance and that positive attention back to them, because you know it's tough, and if we're asking them to give up a part of something that they've been doing for so long and that they immerse themselves in, we want to reward them for doing that. We want to encourage them. So we have to make sure that we're giving them that positive reward. And for any change to happen, it's important that we are consistent and assertive, not angry, not shouty, but assertive. You know, and that comes across as being, we have authority. And then our young person will listen to us. So how do we know if we're doing that? Okay, so are you remaining calm and in control, or are you losing control? It's tricky working with kids when we feel they aren't responding, but when we change our own behaviour and interrupt the pattern of the habit that's forming, then the reaction that is expected, the shouting, the frustration, the deep sigh, you know, maybe the face, the facial expression changes, we will start to notice how changes will occur. So instead of that immediate response that we as a parent might have to go into the situation, ask your young person to come off, and they either just ignore you, and you start to feel yourself getting angry, and you feel the big sigh, and then you start to go with that emotion explosion. Stop, pause, breathe, and if need be, walk away. Just walk away, go do something else for a couple of minutes, and then come back, okay? Come back to it when you're feeling more in control of your own emotions, okay? That way you'll avoid the confrontation. Now, I've talked before on other webinar sessions about the inner chimp. Now, we all have this inner chimp, you know, it's about the chimp in the jungle, you know, they're always there alert for danger. We have our own inner chimp who's always there alert for danger as well inside our brains. Now, it's our emotional machine. So because it's always alert for danger, it's always emotional, you know, it's ready to respond with emotion. And when we see a problem, which is a bit like a red flag in the jungle, oh, there's something going to happen, there's something that's a danger to us, then our inner chimp will kick in. Now, that danger could be something like, Mum is asking me to come off the computer to go and do homework that I don't want to do. So immediately we're going to see Chimp's going to kick in and say, oh, no, 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 homework's a red flag, we don't want to do homework, let's just ignore it and we'll just stay on the computer. We'll just ignore Mum. She doesn't, no, she'll leave us alone eventually. Okay, so their Chimp's kicked in and they're just avoiding you now and thinking that's it. Or they may turn around and start getting angry at you and shout at you for asking them to come off and do something they don't want to do. So we want to be able to go away, come back to it when we're more in control of our emotions so that we can then help them to regulate their own emotional response. Because, you know, when your chimp's kicking in, so if you feel yourself getting angry and that's your chimp taking control, then your young person's chimp is taking control and they will struggle to control. They do not have that same control or impulse over their emotional regulation. So as the parents, we have better control over this and we are better to then step away and respond and come back to it. Now, it's important to consider as well, when we're asking our young person to come off, say, the computer or the social media, you know, they're on their phone and they're just texting or messaging people, we're interrupting them in a sense, right? Because they're engaged in doing something that they really enjoy. And we have to be considerate of that. So we have to say to ourselves, right, okay, rather than getting and saying come off straight away, we might want to say, right, okay, so 10 minutes time it will be dinner, or 10 minutes time we're going to do this, or, you know, in half an hour we're doing this. So give them something that's going to transition them from the phone, a transition onto something else. Okay, so if we do want them to come off and do the homework, we might not want to say to them straight away that it's to come off and do homework. It might be like, come off of that, stop doing that, we're going to have a snack together, a drink, or we're going to go and do, you know, something, just a breakout activity before you then move them on into the thing that you want them to do, which is the homework, the thing that they probably would avoid. But if we've given them a little transition period, a little time to come away from the computer, let our emotions regulate, let everything settle, because remember, they've been using all that energy while they're playing a game, or they've been on their phone, they've been trying to get validation, you know, they're on there seeking it, going, oh, you know, I've not had enough likes. So they might be in a place where they're feeling quite emotional, and then we want to help them regulate that back into a neutral place before we then ask them to do something that they might not particularly want to do. So give them that process of come off, give them a slightly calm down, distracting activity, and then move them on to something else. Give them a period of time to help them emotionally regulate from what they were doing, because we just don't know what might have been happening in that moment before we've come in to speak to them. So give them some time. And again, if there's something that they're doing and we're not happy with it, or they're not following the boundaries, have those conversations about consequences in a neutral space away from the problem. So don't have it while they're on their phone. You know, don't confront them while they're on their phone, because it's just going to cause a kickback. Again, we don't know what emotional place they'll be in, what emotional space that is. So we want to make sure that we have it in a neutral place, okay? And this will also help you to avoid confrontation, okay? Don't have it while they're on the computer gaming. Even if it does mean you're frustrated and you walk away and you've got to give them an extra 10 minutes, then do that and then go back and talk to them later in a neutral place, okay? Take them away from the area of the problem and talk about it. Notice your tone and body language. Now, this is really important. Are they both saying the same thing? Now, only 7% of our communication is actually the words that we use itself. Over half is our body language and 38% is our tone. So the old saying, it's not what you said, but how you said it, could never have been more true. So how are you saying it in that moment? Is your tone, if your tone is quiet and you're looking downwards, you know, a bit like this, then it's likely your child isn't going to take much authority in what you are saying. And if it's too shouty, then your child will likely get defensive. Okay, so remember, they're in an emotional state as well when you're approaching them. So we've got to keep that in mind. They are also in an emotional place. So use visuals to help you communicate. Now, a good one to do is a now, then, and next. Now, this works better for younger children. Obviously, teenagers, it's just used for them to have a planner and they can plan out themselves. But for younger children, now, then, next is a really good way of helping them to know what structure works But what else it helps them to understand is what is expected of them. It's very clear, you know, you do this now, so you're on your phone just now, then you're going to help me prepare dinner, and then you're going to do this, you know. So you give them 3 simple steps, and always keep it just to 3. Break it down into 3 simple steps. Okay. Also removes you as being the problem. You know, so if you're the one that's constantly asking them, don't do this, stop doing that, well, you're kind of telling them to do that, stop doing the things that they want to do. And that, we don't like that, do we? So we want to remove us as being the problem, and instead it's the visual. So if you have the visual up and you just point to it and you say, then it's not you saying to them, you're not doing this anymore. So it kind of removes you, and it removes them from seeing you as the problem. And keep going back to the visuals to reinforce and remind them of what those expectations and those boundaries are. There's nothing worse than somebody constantly reminding us, because then we just speak, you know, it's kind of seen, it's seen as being, just stop nagging me, you're constantly on the case, just leave me alone, you're always shouting at me, you're always getting on at me. So we want to remove that part of it, and we just want to use the visuals. That's the boundary, that's the contract. There, it's there. There's your contract, remember what we agreed, and we just keep taking them back to it, okay? Just keep returning them back to it. But again, important, think about yourself and you when you were that age. How would you think and feel? You know, it's the same for your children. Right now in this world, social media, friendships, gaming, that online connection is important and significant to them. That is what they have in their life right now. And we want to help them to find balance. Okay, we don't want to give them into trouble for it. We don't want to make them feel bad about it. We want them to help give balance. So a couple of things we can look at in a parenting contract is, I promise to treat my child with respect and compassion. Now we can do that by involving them in discussions, involving them in the contract, asking for their opinion and valuing their opinion. Okay, and then obviously remembering what we were like at their age and how we would like to be treated. I promise to spend a reasonable amount of quality time with my child each day, and to give them positive attention. So that means that you can help them to come away from the screen time because they're getting that connection with you instead of with the screen. I promise to set a good example for my child by being the best role model that I can be. And we're going to come on to that in just a minute. I will work my hardest to teach my child how he or she should be acting instead of focusing so much on how he or she should not be acting. So focus on the positive and less on the behaviours that you don't want. So the more you focus on the behaviours you do want, the more you will see them, and therefore the more your child will respond to them, because they will see that you are positively reacting to them. If you focus on everything they're not doing and you get on at them about it, then it's going to keep encouraging those behaviours because the attention is going in the wrong direction. I promise to avoid giving in to my child's crying, tantrums or threats. Doing so will only increase the likelihood of these behaviours in the future. Yep, mentioned it 3 or 4 times now, be persistent and be consistent. And I will do my best to instill firm, fair, consistent and structured guidelines. And I will encourage my child to practice healthy habits and will involve myself in my child's education. So these are just examples of what you could do as a parent to think about, right, okay, this is my contract, this is what I'm going to put into this situation, okay? And again, it gives us a goal and it gives us something to be thinking about. So we said there that we wanted to set a good example for our children. Okay, so in doing that, we want to think about our own media use. So think about your own media use. Children learn more from example than from instruction. So remember that around 80% of parenting is modelling. So your kids are copying you. So whatever you're doing, your kids will copy you. So it may be that what you're doing on your phone, you know, you picked your phone up, what you're doing on your phone is important, but it might also be worth pausing and to reflect if you're making yourself available to your children. Or do they see you with your head stuck in your phone? Now, I know, like good couple of months ago, you know, our kids said to us, you know, you and Dad spend a lot of time on your phone. You know, I don't want to disturb you, Mum, because you're always on your phone. Now, you know, I'll be honest and say that was, you know, primarily I was working. But in my children's eyes, they don't see that. They just see me with my head and my hand, you know, my phone's connected to my hand and I'm always looking at it. So we have to be aware of our own behaviours and what we're doing. So are they seeing your head stuck in your phone? So as I said, there's probably many reasons. Like I was on a, you know, a work situation, but there's still, you know, we still have to be aware of it and we have to be firm with ourselves. According to one source, 69% of parents with kids under 5 reported feeling guilty about their own device use, and 68% said they wish to use their phones less. So we really want to consider taking a break from our own screens as a good example. And what you do and say guide your child's behaviour and attitudes on most things, including screen use. Okay, so we want to encourage our children to take a break. Okay, so we're talking there about some positive on-screen activities that they can do that can help us then move into off-screen activities. So if possible, get the kids to spend some time outside. Let's take a break, let's go outside. Being outdoors can relieve stress, promote cardiovascular health, and protect children from digital eye strain. Okay, going outside also forces us to be away from our computers, and while outside, we can then say, right, that's it. While we're outdoors, that could be one of your contract rules, your boundaries is we don't take our phones or electronics outdoors with us. So it becomes a completely screen-free zone, and you're outside enjoying the fresh air instead. It's also good to encourage, even if your young person says, I'm bored, your child says, I'm bored, I'm fed up, don't know what to do outside. Actually, that's a good time for them to go outside. Go outside and encourage them for some boredom time. It opens up the mind, and it sort of flicks a switch for ideas to pop into their mind, because it gets them creative. Okay, it gets them thinking about other things that they can do, and less reliance and dependency on the screen will entertain me. Okay, it starts to get them thinking about other things that they can do. Again, this is going to take effort and practice, and you're going to have to keep doing it together, effort and practice together, but with consistency, that habit will change. You can also use what we call in the world of NLP a double bind. So that's an illusion of choice with an outcome that your child does more of the things that you want them to do, whilst they still think that they've got the control of the choice. So I'll give you an example. So do you want to eat your dinner or play outside for a while before it gets dark and then have your dinner? Okay, so either way, they will be having dinner. Okay, so they either have their dinner before they go out to play, or they can go out and play and then have their dinner. Do you want to read your book now, or have another half an hour of gaming and then read your book? Okay, this one gives the element of choice, even though it seems to them that they're gaining because they're getting an extra 30 minutes on the computer. But the negotiation side of it is, the compromise is that you're still getting the outcome of them coming off the computer earlier than what they might be used to doing. Okay, so it's taking those small steps into introducing these changes. If we go in too quickly and too soon, then we will have a big kickoff. We can't remove it all completely, but what we want to do is put in these small steps, these small measures that help us to take that control back again. So giving them an extra half an hour on the computer to then come off and read. Okay, so that's a nice good way. It's a double bind. They get an element of choice, but you still get the outcome that you want. We've mentioned earlier about having screen-free zones and screen-free zones, but another one is separate spaces at home for homework, computer time and relaxation. Now, we mentioned earlier having like a screen-free zone in the bedroom, but if that's not possible, try and split the room up into separate spaces. So you get the bed, don't have the computer or the phone next to the bed. Have an area in the corner, maybe with a desk, where they can have their screen time. And then homework can maybe be done at the kitchen table, dining table, or again on the desk at the computer area. Make sure that you've got separate spaces, because that then gives them a different trigger. Bed is then just a place where I relax, listen to music, but that's where I relax. I don't sit and have screen time, because the screen time is what stimulates us, because we have the blue light, and then when we take in the blue light, as we mentioned earlier, that then stimulates it stops the melatonin, the natural release of melatonin, which then means we don't go into that rest mode. The brain doesn't know that it's time to go to rest. So we want to minimize that as much as possible, and we want it that when we go into our bed, the brain automatically sees that as a time to rest. So have those separate spaces at home wherever possible. Be snack aware as well. So we can find that kids, when they're intensely focused and they're zoned and they've got all that adrenaline coursing through their bodies, then they'll tend to snack on sugary stuff, because it gives them the energy that they need to do it. So we need to be snack aware, and because their focus is there, so they'll opt for the snack, the sugar, the crisps, the fizzy drinks, anything to keep that going, and their focus is so intent on what they're doing that they don't really want to come off have the hassle of having something to eat. They just want something quick and snappy. So again, it's helpful if you build this into your contract or part of your structure to have a specific routine around meal times and you know, a boundary that says we have a screen-free zone at this time, you know, and have specific times so that you become used to them. And it's not just kind of random, you know, just say, this is lunchtime, this is dinner time, and during these times, we do not have screen time. Again, effort and practice, but they will become a new way of doing things. We mentioned there about using meal times as screen-free zones. So switch off the TV as well. You know, don't have a TV on in the background or something that will distract you. Just have it completely switched off, no distractions at all. It may seem awkward and uncomfortable to start with, but over time, it will become the new natural way for you all to spend meal times together. Again, we spoke about protecting sleep, so make sure that their brains are winding down and not being overstimulated at bedtime, okay? So, you know, screens off, no screens, an hour or two, at least an hour before bed, and that helps the brain to settle and go back into that rest mode. So it's not getting stimulation from the light off the screen. Some electronic devices now have nighttime modes, which can give out less blue light, but there isn't any specific evidence that these are effective. So just, you know, be careful around that. But you know, sometimes it can be helpful because it sets a routine and a structure so that the phone goes into bedtime mode, it goes into rest mode, so that then indicates to your child or young person that it is time to go to rest. Okay, so it's useful in that sense to encourage a new habit. Remember that teens playing video games like Fortnite or Overwatch, they're also maintaining social relationships during a time when face-to-face interactions are limited. So we still want to keep that encouragement because social interactions are very, very important in our young people's lives. And we just want to make sure that they're healthy and that we are having a positive outcome from it, that it's not all day just spent gaming, that that they can break it out in other ways. So keep that in mind, that there is still the social relationships that we want to encourage as part of that screen time. When you can, help connect your child's media use with real world experiences. So ask them questions about what they're watching or what they're learning in school, what have they been asked to do in school, maybe watch something together, watch a cooking video, and then, maybe putting that together and put it into an actual cooking activity as a family. So get them to pick the recipe, go shopping for the food, and then cook it together as a family, so they can start off by online looking at a YouTube video about, this is how you do it. Okay, then, they look at screen, let's look up the recipe, let's get the information, we can put it onto our phones, we can then share it there. Then we go to the shops, we use our phones to look it up, see what the ingredients are that we need, and then when we go home, we're then physically going to cook it. Okay, so that again, that sort of integrates the screen sharing, the screen, the screen time, as well as doing something more physical, more active. We don't know how long, it's been a year into COVID-19, and we don't know how long it will remain with us and how long it will have an impact, an influence on restrictions and what we are able to do. But kids are now back at school, and they are now being able to integrate back into society that way. Some children may still be making that return to school. It'll be a slower transition as they adjust back into a new way of doing things. So we want to make sure that we are creating and establishing new routines, but we're doing that in a way that is supporting the young person in their development. So we don't want to completely take away the screen time if they need that just now. So take it small steps and introduce these changes slowly, and then before too soon you will really notice a big change and how easy they are to then adjust to bigger changes around screen time, and it'll become more of a natural thing to them to do as they find other interesting activities to do. So we can't just take one away and replace it with another. We have to make the two of them work together. So create new routines, focus on habits that are sustainable and practical, so don't just rush in and do something that's sustainable and practical, that you've discussed together, that you're all on board with it, you all agree and you all understand what's expected. But above all else, don't feel guilty about turning to screens more than you used to. The internet is saturated with non-screen related advice for helping parents entertain children who are stuck indoors. Colour-coded schedules and toys can only go so far. And frankly, they don't always help when, as parents, we're having to work remotely and we've got responsibilities to do, so cut yourselves, give yourselves a break. You know, let's take a break on ourselves from feeling guilty about that. Encourage your children to read physical books and magazines. And again, let them see you doing this. Lead by example. Printed books are better for the eyes because we don't have the LED light. So again, it's not stimulating. So, and it's a good thing at bedtime is to read, you know, and particularly a boring book, so that we're not interested. It then helps the body to switch, the brain to switch off. So, printed books is best way forward. You can invest in blue blocker glasses that are specifically designed to shield your eyes. So they shield your eyes from the blue light emissions, and you know they can be quite useful. So there is some evidence there to suggest that they do work. So that's another thing that you could look into, is getting the blue blocker glasses if your young person does spend a lot of time online. And whilst you're working with them to get them to come, you know, spend less time, screen time, and move on to other things, then you could be using the glasses to help in that process. Now, what we can do is we can integrate the screen time to get your child moving physical activity with digital. So what we were talking about there is integrating them both. So one thing you could do is plan a walk using a digital map. Yeah, so you've got the phone there, you've got the screen time, but you're walking at the same time. Take photos of interesting things you see on a walk. You can then look at them later together. You can maybe even put them together as a wee slideshow or as a little movie. And then you can talk about what you saw, and you could draw a map, and then you could add the photos to it. So there's lots of different things you can do there. And again, you're incorporating being outside with doing something then on the screen when you come in. And it's not just social media, and it's not just going on to games. You could video your child learning a new skill. You know, it could be anything, you know, maybe a new skateboard trick or on their bike, you know, doing something on their bike. And then you can then do something with that video. You know, you can edit it and cut it, and you can make it fun together. You know, you can do lots of things now with your phones, with your smartphones. You don't even need to have a computer. You can do it with your smartphones. So make it fun. And again, it's screen time, but it's in a more creative way. Watch videos set in places you'd like to visit together. You know, do a wee road trip, plan a wee virtual road trip. You know, look at videos of different cities, or you want to go to a beach, or different, you know, adventures that you might want to do. So do that together and create a little virtual holiday together. Choose videos or apps that encourage your child to dance. We mentioned that earlier, to dance and sing, or games that involve moving, and virtual sports simulators. So anything that gets them moving. So again, they've still got screen time, but they're actually moving at the same time. Bring your child's screen time interest into off-screen play. Now, we touched on that. So another example is for younger children, your child could dress up as a favourite TV character, or use dolls and figurines to act out scenes. You know, so again, if there's something they've seen in a cartoon or an animation, you can then say, oh, let's copy that, and then you start to do it together away from the screen. So it's starting to break them away from the screen and more into doing something physically that they can do, you know, like that tactile learning. Make use of natural breaks like advertisements or the end of game levels to encourage movement. So what you could do there is see how many star jumps you can do in between, fit in before the ads finish or before you move on to the next game. You know, so again, it's breaking up into a little bit of screen time, a little bit of activity, back to screen time, back to so it breaks. It doesn't take one away. It gradually cuts them down on the amount of screen time. Very small steps. Your child is strongly influenced by the way you use screens and will want to do what you do. So again, this is just going back to that parent responsibility and that parent contract. So if your child sees you using screens to get moving, they're more likely to use screens for physical activity too. So you do things that will encourage them. So taking an interest in what your kids are doing during screen time to help build their sense of self-esteem. Okay, this won't be possible if you're hoping the TV will distract your toddler away from your Zoom meeting, okay? You know, because we've all had to do that. But in these moments, kids can also connect in real time with friends or other family members using safe and trusted apps. Now that allows your child to either then read a book or draw with someone remotely. So they don't have to be necessarily talking straight away, but they're just connected to each other, and you know, they can be sharing an activity together. There's also some ways that you can look at role modelling for combining screen time with physical activity. So we're getting to the end here, folks. We're almost there. Show your child how you track your physical activity. So you can talk about how good it feels, you know, to see how far you walked, cycled, or swam, or, you know, the last week. So your phones track all this now. It tracks your steps, you know, does all of this for you. So also use, again, that screen time, use that together to talk about how you use your screen time in a more positive way. Look up instructional videos before you do things that are physically active. So again, this lets the children see that you're using screen time to, again, to be creative, you know. So watch a video on how to pot a plant and then go outside and plant one. And that's something, again, that you can do on the screen, and then you both go out and do it together. Share your favourite physical activity apps with your child. So apps that guide you through dance or yoga, and there's lots of those out there, especially yoga apps. So use these. You can try different yoga poses or different dance routines together. So there's lots and lots there of ways for you to think about and engage in a creative way with your young person. So we're not saying, right, let's remove the computer together. We're not saying that, you know, we've got to cut it by half, or we've got to get it down to, you know, just 1 hour a day. What we're saying is use these steps to help build a new way of doing things. Use these steps to encourage your young person, your child, to spend less time and less time and less time. And the more less time they spend, the more time they will spend doing other things. So you will gradually add in less time on the computer and more time doing other creative things that are outdoors or that are dancing, that involves them moving around, and it's more time spent doing family things together. Other ways to encourage that connection with you as a family and that connection with other friends and family members that's not necessarily just screen time. But when we do have to use the screen time, use it positively. Use it to help us in a creative and learning way. Use it to help each other connect, but rather than always just use it for gaming, then we can use it to share an activity in a different way. And use it to do a little bit of screen time and a little bit of something that's more physically active that takes you away from that actual screen. So digital music to start with, learn all about music online, then you can incorporate that into actually learning an instrument yourself. And the two of them come hand in hand. So less time, so you'll find that they will naturally want to spend less time on the computer as they start to get engaged in more of the activities in other ways. So lots for there for you to be thinking about. So you've got the contracts that you can use together, the boundaries to set in place. Think about your body language and your tone. What are you communicating? Are you being, you know, communicating with authority? Are you being flexible with each other? Are we being understanding? And are we being consistent? You know, are we giving in too easily? Do we need to be a bit, you know, put a bit more effort into it, a bit more practice, and, you know, go back and remind ourselves that, yeah, okay, so this might be a bit of a slow slog, but we have to do it, and then keep going back. So lots of things there for you to be thinking about. Any questions that may come on the back of this, then please do let us know. There are more webinars. I've kept you for quite a while tonight, so I'm going to quickly finish off. So we have more webinars coming up. Tomorrow night there is managing self expectations tomorrow night, so please tune in for that if you have signed up. And all that leaves for me to say is thank you so much for listening to us again. We are so pleased that we can come to you at this time to share some top tips with you and some advice on helping during such a difficult time as we've had this last year. So once again, thanks again for giving up your time to join us tonight and for listening. And if you haven't been with us tonight and you're catching up on our brand new fantastic Superheroes YouTube channel, then hello and thank you again for joining us. Okay, take care everyone. Thank you.